Let's talk about the worst way to learn English vocabulary. You stare at a massive list of words, run through flashcards until your eyes ache, and feel totally prepared. But stepping into a real conversation, those definitions vanish, leaving you stumbling for basics. This happens because the human brain effectively filters out isolated data points. We aren't wired to memorize a dictionary. Evolution favored those who could track context and social cues, meaning we retain information best when it's wrapped in a story. Today, we are going to bypass the flashcards completely. Instead, we'll watch 4 advanced English idioms operating in the wild, so you can see exactly how they function in a natural conversation. To do this, we need to follow Rohan. He's an everyday office worker who is about to walk into a high-stakes, career-defining week. By following Rohan's week, you're giving these phrases a place to live. When you see how an idiom reacts to a specific crisis, your brain treats the vocabulary as a lived experience rather than a piece of data to be filed away. Rohan's week begins with an email from upper management. They've decided to put him in charge of restructuring the entire department's workflow, a massive, tangled mess of a project that nobody else wanted to touch. He spends his first 3 days staring at spreadsheets, trying to find a starting point. The new project is a hard nut to crack. Despite the confusion, Friday arrives. Rohan has to stand in front of the executive board and deliver a detailed pitch on his restructuring strategy. The pressure gets to him. His hands shake, he loses his place in his notes, and he completely forgets the main financial projection. Rohan dropped the ball. An hour later, he's slumped over his desk in silence, convinced he's going to be fired. A senior manager walks by, notices his despair, and pulls up a chair. The manager pats him on the shoulder and tells him there is no use crying over spilt milk. Because Rohan fumbled the operational pitch so badly, the board decides he isn't right for management. Instead, they transfer him to the creative design team, the exact role he had secretly been hoping to get since he was hired. The disastrous presentation ended up being a blessing in disguise. In less than 90 seconds, Rohan moved through a complete professional arc: anxiety, failure, comfort, and unexpected redemption. These phrases captured each specific emotion. Now, let's step out of the story and look at the mechanics. Why do native speakers use these specific phrases to describe those emotions? When Rohan was staring at the confusing spreadsheets, the project was a hard nut to crack. Look at the literal action here. You apply pressure, you strain, and the shell refuses to yield. That physical resistance perfectly maps to mental resistance. We use this phrase to describe an exceptionally difficult problem to solve, or a person who is impossible to figure out. Next, we have drop the ball. This comes directly from sports like cricket or baseball. You have an easy catch, the team relies on you, and it slips through your fingers. In a professional context, the meaning remains exactly the same. You were given clear responsibility, and through a clumsy error, you failed to execute it. Then the senior manager told Rohan not to cry over spilt milk. Once a liquid pools across a table, scooping it back into the glass is physically impossible. The imagery drives home the lesson. Pouring emotional energy into a past mistake is useless, because the event cannot be undone. You have to simply clean it up and move forward. Finally, the bad pitch was a blessing in disguise. Think of a highly positive outcome wearing an ugly, frightening mask. By linking the figurative meaning to its literal visual metaphor, you bypass the need for a dictionary. You only need to remember the image. For many learners, idioms feel like arbitrary hurdles designed to make English more confusing. In practice, they function as efficient, colorful shortcuts. Native speakers rely on them to instantly communicate complex emotions that would otherwise take several sentences to explain. Listening to Rohan's story helps you understand these phrases today, but to keep them in your vocabulary long-term, you have to apply them to your own life. Go down to the comments and write one sentence about your own week at work or school using one of the 4 idioms we just covered. If this breakdown helped you, like the video and subscribe to Bloom Speak English for more narrative-driven vocabulary lessons. Fluency comes when you stop relying on textbook lists and start using the right tools to tell your own stories.